Danny Kennedy is an online fitness coach, entrepreneur, and host of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast, one of the fastest growing podcasts around the world that has over 11 million downloads. He's known for his no-nonsense, no bullshit approach to fitness and mindset. Danny has built a global community through his coaching programs and his supplement brand, Unify Active. He's helped thousands of people transform not just their bodies, but their entire approach to health, discipline, and purpose. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of being on his show, so I'm so excited to return the favor to not only a dear friend, but someone that has inspired me deeply in the online space. Please welcome to the show, Danny Kennedy.
Thanks so much for having me, Mel. That was a nice intro. I might need to bring you with me wherever I go, public places. Yeah.
I'll be a hype girl.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm so glad we got to make this happen because our diaries are a lot of fun.
My goodness, aren't they? We were just, before we jumped in, we were both discussing the madness of both of our diaries. But yeah, I'm super stoked we're here. It's really grateful to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. So Danny, let's just go straight into, I suppose, one, how are you? Where are things at right now in this moment in your year? Where are things at? What's business like?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Where things are at this year or right now, I mean, there's always heaps happening, which is how I kind of like it. I very much so enjoy that. But this year has been a fair bit of growth in terms of the business side of things, particularly around the coaching and mentoring and just the evolution of what that looks like. As you mentioned in the intro, we've also got Unify, which is obviously requiring a lot of time and energy, and I'd love to be able to put even more energy to it if I could. But yeah, running the podcast as well. I'm just kind of constantly trying to evolve on all of those things, and probably like we discussed in our episode, a lot of the business ventures typically just become a bit of an extension or a reflection of wherever I'm at in my life as well. And so it is ever changing, and there's always so much to learn, and I'm just trying to make sure that I learn from some of those mistakes and more so just continue to expose myself to what that next level looks like across the board, and continue to evolve and grow.
I find as we've both developed and become a bit more seasoned in entrepreneurship, our calendars are naturally quite full. We go from content creation to podcasts to meetings to coaching to launching a product, all these kind of great things. But for some entrepreneurs, their calendars aren't full. And as you begin, I think you're so quick to build a busy calendar, or you just kind of make things up as you go to fill up your days. Can we wind it right back to Danny first starting in this online space? Was it even online space that you first started? What was that really, really early young Danny's career like?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's evolved a lot. I think even before I touch on that, like I would mention as well, I feel like you're on the same page. I definitely was caught in the trap of being busy for the sake of being busy and almost wearing it like a badge of honor. Whereas at this stage of life and business, I'm almost somewhat trying to do the opposite, where it's like I'm trying to create more free time in my calendar, not only so new things can actually land there and have opportunity to put time and energy to those new things, but also just really understanding like what are the needle movers in my life and my business and what actually requires my time, and being okay with a free calendar sometimes. Not that it happens often, but when it does, again, like that's where the opportunity is for something new to land. And I think that's important. But early days, it was kind of the opposite of that. It was me wanting to be as busy as possible. And I started out with a mixture of both. So it started out as just personal training initially. And within about 12 months of starting full-time PT, I lent into the online space. I'd started posting a lot of content online and was getting some good feedback and people wanting help. And I just thought, all right, let's add an online element to this. And it's crazy to see how much it's evolved like since then. I remember when I first started the online stuff, it was literally like a Word document of like a nutrition plan and then a training plan. And then it just continued to evolve over time. But so I found myself in a little bit of I was kind of getting in my own way, you could almost say, to an extent, because I really wanted the online to grow. but there really wasn't any time. Like I was getting busier and busier as a PT, which was awesome. And I was talking about this with a client the other day. I look at now, I only work with a handful of people in person these days that I've got really good relationships with. But sometimes you see those sessions in your calendar for the day and you're like, oh, shit, I really need to put that time to something else. But at one point in time, that's all I wanted, was to have like a full book of PT clients.
Yep.
And yeah, starting in that online space. And I just kind of saw that I was obviously quite limited to my reach if I was just trading my own time for money. And there's only so many PT sessions you can do in a day. Whereas with the content and the online coaching, it just allowed me to really reach a much larger audience and try and impact more people's lives. And it was probably around that time, maybe 12 months after I launched the online stuff, is when I launched the pod. And so again, that kind of started to open up a few more doors. And I was almost balancing the two of like, in person, I'd started working a lot with professional athletes and actors or celebrities, or however you want to look at it. And in the online space, I was just really trying to get clear on like what direction I wanted to go with it and who I really wanted to work with. And that took time. At the start, it was kind of anyone and everyone. But obviously as time went on and I really understood where I felt like most of my value was and also just like who I was most excited to work with, that changed a lot. And so fast forward to today, it looks very different than what it did then. But as I said, I kind of work with a handful of people in person now, and they're people that I really respect and I love spending time with, and I'd probably do it regardless of whether they were a client or not. And then the online space is probably what takes up 80% of my time now. I still obviously do a lot in the health and fitness space, but it's heavily now leaning towards personal development and mindset. And it's kind of like a rinse and repeat process of the online coaching. Now it's like also getting really clear on what type of clients I want to work with in that space. And that's ended up being, predominantly business owners and athletes still. But yeah, founders, business owners, basically anyone who's like a high performing person or wants to be. And yeah, I love it. It's just so fulfilling. The podcast is obviously something that's continued to just tick along since 2016, which is crazy. Like we're releasing episode 600. I believe it'll be next week.
Incredible.
Which is nuts. But yeah, as I kind of said before, it's always just been a bit of a reflection or an extension of myself. And that's how I've really tried to approach content, business, and kind of just whatever I put out into the world from that side of things. So yeah, I love it. It's, it's given me so much opportunity and it's allowed me to meet so many people and build great relationships and connect with people like yourself, which, obviously, if I'd probably just stayed in the gym, that definitely wouldn't have been the case. But I also obviously don't regret any being in the gym because that's what I absolutely loved and still do. But it's also what allowed me to become a really good coach, just learning people skills and learning how to actually deal with people and network. And that's such a big component of it.
There is so much there, so loaded with so many things that I want to go. So the one that I want to ask is, I actually find a lot of successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, like you look at Alex Hormozy and things, they actually started from PT, right? They all started from the gym floor and then worked their way up. How integral do you think it is that people that are entrepreneurs, like they work on their discipline with their body, or it's fitness that kind of leads them there and then it expands, or it's not really correlated? What do you think?
I think there's a direct correlation, and what you're actually starting to see more of now and over the last few years is a lot of entrepreneurs and business people who didn't ever go to the gym heavily invest their time and energy into their fitness now. And there's a very good reason for it. I mean, I obviously started out as an athlete and obviously spending a lot of time in the gym just for my own training. And a lot of those values and a lot of the discipline and the lessons you learn from that, whether it be delayed gratification, whether it be, having that level of discipline and showing up for yourself, and all of those lessons just directly translated into how I ran my business. And I think it was so important. Like even these days when someone reaches out about online coaching as a fitness coach, like the first thing I ask is like, how long have you spent as a PT in the gym? Yeah. And if the answer is nothing, then I suggest they go and do that first, or at least at the same time, because the people skill side of things is another one. Like there were so many valuable things in business that even as a trainer, as a coach, that I probably didn't even think about until I started. And, two of those were relationship building and networking,
Yep.
which has obviously become just a huge aspect of any of the growth I've had, and people skills, like being able to be good with communicating with people and to build good relationships. But the discipline side of things, showing up for yourself, understanding that, you with the gym and with your body, I think it's quite simple. It's like you either do put in the work or you don't. And the one who benefits or doesn't benefit is you. And you can't blame anyone else. It's no one else's fault. But you get that direct reward. And I think even coming from playing team sport, I'd always prided myself on, what I would look at is working just as hard, if not harder than anyone around me. But that didn't always necessarily translate to the success that I hoped to have. And then so with the gym and with business, all of a sudden it did. And so I was like, this is kind of like right where I want to be. So I think there's a direct correlation, and I'm sure we'll touch on it today as well, but it's also the headspace, the mindset. Like when you're showing up for yourself physically, mentally, you feel great. When you're putting the time and energy into the mental and the personal growth side of things, being in that really high frequency state then makes it easier to go and take care of your fitness side as well.
Yep.
And so I just think it's essential. We'll put it this way, like I don't know too many successful business people that don't prioritize their health and fitness.
Yeah. It's a character trait as well. And how you do anything, right, is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And I think which came first. So some people might naturally gear towards business first, but then like you had mentioned, once they've got that kind of rolling or at peak performance there, they recognize that their health is their number one asset. And without it, none of the wealth actually matters.
Not at all. Not at all. You're 100% correct. Like even a client of mine who became a really good friend as well, he is very, very, very successful in business. And I mean, he did take care of his health and fitness. Like when we were working together, he was in the best shape of his life. And yeah, like his health went downhill and ended up losing his life at 41, 42. And we had a lot of conversations before he passed away. And it was interesting. I'd actually done a podcast with him prior to his health starting to go downhill. And I even asked him in that podcast, like, was all of the sacrifice worth it?
Yeah.
Not from the fitness side, but from the business side. Was it all worth it? And he was essentially like, no. And that's not to say that people shouldn't sacrifice or shouldn't put in the work and whatnot. But I think it's just you see this trend when people see this significant level of success without, say, the health and fitness or maybe without the relationships. And then you get to a point and it's like they're the only things that are missing, and they're the things that they prioritize more than all the success and money that they've got. And so my view with it is like it doesn't have to be one or the other, and it can be both. And I think even if I think of the success side of things, like I want to make sure that one, I'm around long enough to experience it and enjoy all the the fruits of the work that I put in.
Yeah.
And also to have really special people to enjoy it with.
Yeah. Yeah. With all the people that you have interviewed and your friend included, you are just surrounded by successful people, right? Like they're all peak performances, arguably. They all work hard. So that's kind of almost like the entry.
Prerequisite.
Yeah, exactly. The prerequisite to hang out with you. What are some common things that you've seen through your 600 episodes as well? Are there actual defining traits that you're like, okay, this is a real commonality between every single one of these successful people?
There's definitely a few. I think the one, the first one that I mentioned, which is the one that most people don't like hearing, but it's just like consistency. I mean, not even just with the guests. Like anytime I tell people about the podcast, like that is the only reason why it's done so well is because of consistency. Like at least one episode every single week since 2016, and the first 2 to 3 years, like no one was listening.
Yeah.
And so without the consistency, none of it is there. So the consistency part is very underrated, but the other things that really stand out to me is like just being very convicted about the decisions that you're making. and not having one foot in, one foot out, but really just going all in with the decision that you make and truly embodying that decision. The other thing is also urgent action.
Yeah.
And I said this to a client the other day, like we should be extremely impatient with action and extremely patient with outcomes. And every single one of these people, the common trait is, again, conviction with their decisions, but also just very urgent action and consistent action. And that doesn't mean that every action they take is a winning action, or it doesn't mean that everything they do is successful. But because they take such a high level of action, they're learning what works and what doesn't so much quicker. And that pathway or the how illuminates itself through that action. I think the other aspect of it as well is that they're very anchored into like their standards and their values, and they don't waver from it. And so I'm trying to think of what the word is that you meant to use around that, but it's, yeah, they just don't waver from their standards or their values
They
based
have a
off
set of non-negotiables, or like the...
For sure.
Yeah.
Integrity, maybe that's the word I'm trying to think of. But yeah, they're just so firm with like what these standards and values are, and it's not just with one or two things. It's collectively across the board with their whole life. And it's just that speed. Like when I say like urgent action, it's kind of like speed of implementation. They're just constantly moving, constantly like evolving. And when shit doesn't work, it's okay, cool, let's move on from it. Instead of like tying their identity to this thing that they've put all this time and effort into. If they get to a point where they realize it no longer serves them or it's just not working, then they're very quick to move from that onto then not the next thing, but to pivot as quick as possible. And I think that was one of the interesting things throughout COVID and lockdown. Working with some of these like really big business people and entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs was not only how quickly and how efficiently they pivoted when they needed to, but also how little it fazed them.
Yeah.
So even the client I mentioned before, one of the craziest things that I kind of took from him was just the ability to stay like so incredibly calm when it felt like the whole fucking world was burning around him, like particularly around business. Whereas I think particularly earlier in business, or when we're probably sometimes too emotionally attached to certain decisions we make, we become very, very reactive, and then you take shit personally, and then you hold on to things for too long, and then you start to build resentment towards certain things, and it all just starts kind of crumbling. Whereas if it's like, okay, you're very clear on the vision, you know the direction you're going in, you're willing to pivot, you're willing to let go of certain things, but you also just don't take things personally. And that was one of the big lessons that I probably had to learn a bit earlier on too, is like just nothing's personal, like,
I think
which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. And just on that as well, like, can you identify a key moment? I feel like so many of us, it becomes our identity. Like whatever, even the calendar that we can talk about later, it's almost like I'm trying to unlearn this identity of working hard and how to even achieve success is, because it's so ingrained in me, immigrant family, blah, 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 like got to work hard. And then business becomes part of our identity. So when we go, don't take it personally, but it's your name, Danny Kennedy, online coaching on the line.
Yeah.
So how did you let go of that?
Well, I think even just quickly, like with the hard work thing, that's a funny one to talk about, because early on, like I heavily relied on hard work. Like that was my number one asset. That's what I thought, is like I would work hard. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think you do need that. That is one of the ingredients that you do need, but it only gets you so far. And I think if that was the main ingredient, then there'd be many people around the world that are extremely wealthy and successful because they work sometimes twice as hard as people that are walking around that are billionaires.
Yeah.
You know, so if that was the only thing that mattered, then there'd be a lot more successful people. But so then it's kind of the mixture or the balance between the hard work and then the allowing part of it. And I think even now, like with the coaching stuff I'm doing around personal development, I feel like that's probably why a lot of people are gravitating towards it, because it's not like one end of the spectrum or the other. It's not like you're full spiritual yogi where you live in the fucking forest or you're like hustle, hustle, hustle. It's kind of being able to meet in the middle, but not taking shit personally. So as I said in the past, that was probably something that I struggled with a little bit. And that was because I was too emotionally attached to what I was doing. And the whole identity shift has taught me a lot, because I had the identity shift of being a basketballer, then not being a basketballer, and then leaning into business and coaching. I had the identity shift of even spending, such a long period of time building authority and trust in the fitness space to then really leaning into personal development. But a lot of that's self-inflicted, right? I think I say to clients a lot, like, you can be the best in the world at what you do. That's not who you are. It's just something that you're exceptionally good at. And there's still a person behind that. And recently I've been one of my mentoring clients who is in the business space. They're in the process of selling their business, and it's a significantly large sale, ideally, when it goes through, not if, when it goes through. But throughout that process, like, we've done a lot of our calls have revolved around this, because this person in particular, they've got like these advisors and potentially a buyer coming in and doing what they're meant to do, pretty much just picking apart the business and trying to do all the due diligence, all like everything to make sure that they're spending their money wisely or correctly.
Yeah.
And it's just been interesting to observe that whole process, because this person it has felt like a lot of it is personal, because it's their business, it's their baby. It's like they've put their name to it.
Especially when they're doing a val, right? An valuation to exit. You can get businesses at 3, 4, 5x, 10x sometimes. It can feel like scrutiny. Yeah.
Well, it almost feels like they're wanting to find something wrong
to not do with you,
to not do it with you. But like, we've had this conversation a lot where it's like, no, if you were on the other side of this, you'd do exactly the same. And it's nothing, you have to be able to separate the two. And so I think even with business, like decision making, and I said before, the ability to take action fast and to pivot and to let go of things that no longer serve you, you can't be emotionally attached to all that stuff, because otherwise you end up on this roller coaster of emotions where not only are you reactive, but you're kind of showing up in a complete different frequency in different scenarios around different people in different situations on different days, what the fucking weather is. It's like, it's just too unstable. And so when it's not emotional or it's not attached to your own worth, or you're not taking things personally, I think you just make much better decisions.
But aren't we human beings that have a lot of emotions? So
for sure,
it's like we're emotional beings. It's what we are. And I remember, because you're valid. I just want to play devil's advocate.
No, you're right.
Yeah, when my ex-boss said, he actually said to me when I went out to do my own expos and stuff, like, you'll never be successful. And he looked me in the eye and he said, you'll never be successful because you're too emotional. And at the time, that was loaded with, I was so emotional. And then now looking back, that was 8 years ago. And there's some merit to what he said, because I was super hypervigilant, took everything personally. And then I would justify it being like, my emotions are my superpower. And I know some people listening will be like, everyone's saying don't be emotional, but it's like, that's who I am. It's what makes me me.
Yep.
Like, what do you have to say to that?
No, that's a good point. I'm trying to, there's almost two ways I look at this. And if we use that exact example right there, to your point, I don't think it's a bad thing. Well, I definitely don't think it's a bad thing to actually lean into your emotions. But I think it's more so, are you allowing the emotions to take over?
Yes.
Or are you allowing, say, critical feedback to then change how you feel about yourself and your self-worth, right? And because with this whole like taking things personally, I think a lot of people don't actually have a fear of judgment or fear of people's opinions. It's the fact that when someone has opinion or judgment, they then kind of question that about themselves. It's like they're actually kind of then judging themselves based off what someone else has said, if that makes sense. At the same time, what helped me a lot with this around the whole taking it personally and all that stuff is that the majority of the time, people are just projecting their own limiting beliefs, projecting their own internal state, projecting their own insecurities. And so it's not like you just don't want to believe anything that anyone says or not take on any feedback or any advice whatsoever. And also you don't want to be suppressing all your emotions. You want to allow yourself to feel them. But then it's like, this is where, you can kind of have that conversation around, particularly in business and particularly with decisions, like, are you making decisions from that state? are you making decisions from a low frequency or fear or doubt or scarcity and lack? Or are you making them from a high frequency? Are you making them when you are kind of clear? And so, I said to a client the other day, like, they'd been having a bit of a resistant or a bit of a challenging period of time over the last few months, but there was also a lot of wins. All I said to them is that, you're just making too many decisions when you're in a low frequency state at the moment. And that's where all the resistance is coming from, because there's plenty of good things here. And so instead of feeling like shit needs to be, done right now or reacting, being able to have almost that gap between stimulus and response and not just instantly feel like things need to be decided right now. Just taking time away. It might not have anything to do with your business whatsoever. Go out for lunch with your partner, go to the beach, go to the gym, do an ice bath, do whatever the fuck it is. Like, go do something to change your state, because the state you're in is going to determine your perception of every experience that you have. And so the emotional side of things, again, I think it's important to actually allow yourself to feel the emotions, but then be quite careful about how
controlling you.
Yeah, correct.
Or like when they overtake you, like anger or something. It's like when you're not in control of it. It's that emotional regulation that I think he could have said it a better way too, instead of looking me in the eye and saying, I'll never be successful. The delivery of it.
But look where you are today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was the right or wrong way to do it.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
I say it in a lot of interviews as well, is like he was the catalyst. It was the chip in my shoulder that I probably needed, and it lit the fire in my belly that was like, I'll get you, and it started off that way from an ego perspective. I'm pretty open about that. But then over time it subsided into impact service and actually who I truly am.
Yeah. Like even hearing you talk about this now, like mine wasn't necessarily even with business, but with basketball and being as an athlete, I experienced so much setback, failure, rejection, basically getting told you are not good enough over and over and over again. And that definitely obviously lit something inside of me, which one, made me value hard work, two, resilience and discipline. And there probably was a period of time where it was almost like a fuck you, like I'm going to show you, that you were wrong the whole time. But then throughout that, you kind of realize like it doesn't even matter. It's like, because then who you become throughout it, it's like, actually, you know what? I'm not actually trying to prove it to them. I was always just trying to prove it to myself.
Yes.
And so I can look at those periods of time, and don't get me wrong, like at the time they were very challenging and hard, and they weren't pleasant, but it was the best thing that ever happened for me. Without that, who knows like what direction I would have went in with certain things. Without this comment that you got, who knows what you would have went on to aspire to do. If there wasn't some of that resistance. So to your point, I think like you said before, feeling the emotion is important. There's nothing wrong with it. You should feel the emotion, because I think off the back of those emotions, well, again, if it's like a low frequency negative emotion, it's also quite a clear indicator or good indicator of certain things or people or environments that you maybe don't want in your life anymore. And so it kind of becomes that catalyst to make a change, so you can go in the direction of where you do want it, where you do feel good.
Yeah, and it's all part of the story. And Steve Jobs says that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. So every single challenge or setback, it adds to the story should you not give up on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a natural part of me asking this inquisitive thing where you talk about frequency. You talk about energy a lot. You talk about consciousness. And I love seeing like an alpha male speak about what can be seen sometimes as woo-woo and all of this empowerment, enlightenment kind of stuff. But then when you really deeply understand energy, you'd know that this is just a really natural advancement of the conversation, and everything is energy.
Yeah.
How did you enter that world or consciousness around this, and were you always open to it? What's been your experience with it?
Yeah. So what I'll quickly say first too is that, like I said 5-10 minutes ago, whenever I said it, I think people have this perception that that you have to be one or the other. You're either like full alpha male, like do, hustle, or you're like full spiritual and you just sit around and wait for shit to happen. It's like, No,
It will just flow to me.
yeah. The thing I say to all of my clients is like, a lot of this stuff around frequency, a lot of the personal development stuff, it's not just someone's opinion. It's quite literally physics, right? And so, but to answer your question, I wasn't necessarily always open to it at all. Like I was always just push, and that's actually what led me to the spiritual side of things, you know, because I had a number of periods of time where this was the case, but there was a certain period of time where I was just, you know, partly due to my own decisions, but I was experiencing a fair bit of anxiety, like quite unhappy and just neglecting the mental side of things. And so one day I just tried a meditation. I used the Headspace app. I'd never meditated before. And if you knew me then, I would have been like the last person you would expect to try and meditate. And it was probably only like a 5-minute meditation, but there was just this one brief moment of like peace that I experienced in that 5 minutes. And so I decided to kind of like pull on that thread a little bit more. And I ended up reading a book by Robin Sharma, The Greatness Guide, I think it was. And then I kind of got stuck into a few more books because up until that point, I don't think I'd ever read a book. Even the ones I was meant to read in school, I probably didn't read. But I finished that in like a day. And I was like, it just lit something inside of me that really kind of, it drove this excitement to actually learn more about it and to probably learn more about myself and kind of look past a lot of the surface level stuff. And I ended up setting this goal, which is funny. It keeps swaying back from like just going back to the old self, even though I was trying to implement new self stuff. So I set a goal of meditating every day for 2017.
Wow.
Which is great, but it ended up just being another goal. Like I was just ticking the box of doing the meditation. And then, so I kept just exploring it more, learning from guys like Joe Dispenza, Bob Proctor, and I really just started to lean into the whole world of personal development, and mainly because I was seeing the difference it was having in my life. Like, you know, once I understood meditation properly and started using it as a proper tool, and you know, really doing some of that inner work and being okay with like looking into what my limiting beliefs were and where my biggest vulnerabilities were. Things just started to feel a lot better and a lot different. And it wasn't like life kind of, there was a period of time where my whole life was basically just this big distraction. Like I was still striving for growth and success and whatnot, but I was using business, training, basically anything and everything I could to distract myself from just sitting with my own thoughts or having to sit through any of the resistance and discomfort and vulnerabilities that I had. And when I kind of started facing that all head on, like, you know, not only was it not as scary as what I'd probably made it out to be, but more importantly, like my life got better. And I really just fell in love with that whole process. And naturally I was having more and more of these conversations with people around me. And it was kind of like, I'm sure you've experienced the same, like you start to learn a lot of this stuff and you're like, fuck, like I want to tell everyone about this.
Yes.
Like if everyone felt what I feel and everyone understood what I understood now, fuck, the world would be a shit ton of a better place. But it would just help so many people. And so, you know, much like I did with, you know, when I was playing sport, much like I did when I learned around training and nutrition, business and everything, it was like, I just want to absorb as much of this as I can and learn from as many people as I can. And so through the podcast, that's obviously been an incredible tool to keep connecting and exposing myself to different people and ideas and whatnot. And just investing in coaches and mentors. Like that's not something that I probably did much of early on, because as I said to you before, it was very much so like, I'm just going to do all the work and be the one who does everything. But yeah, once I looked at it, and what I often say to people now still as well is that regardless of whether you give a shit about this stuff or not, like everyone's using it.
Yeah.
Like everybody is using the laws of the universe. Everyone is using the law of attraction. Everyone's using the law of vibration. You just may not know it yet.
Correct.
And so why not use it to your advantage? And I think when you do, and you do start to experience like just how good life can get and just how great every day can be, it's hard to then go back once you've been exposed to that.
You are someone that just, I find, really embodies all of these things. And there is really a difference between someone like yourself that embodies it and lives it, and energetically, even online, you can see you're living it. And then I find in this world of social media, and it's not even their fault or whatnot, but that where you can get stuck in just ticking the boxes, or you
Yeah.
say, especially the health scene, I think, as you know, like the fitness scene can be seen as healthy, but then it's masked with insecurities at these bodybuilding comps, and it's just riddled with like bullying and just like hate, actually really negatively charged energy. And then same as the self-help or shelf-help space, where people do meditate, they're doing their ice baths, they're, you know, yoga, Pilates, like they've got this 15-hour morning routine of journaling and all that. So it's like,
That 99% of them don't actually do.
yeah. So how do we, is that something that we can teach people to actually embody it rather than just doing the day-to-day ticking the boxes and going, I'm doing my journaling, I'm doing my gratitude, I'm doing all these things rather than being?
Yeah, well, you've kind of just nailed it. It's largely less to do with the doing and a shitload more to do with the being, you know, because even with all of these things you kind of mentioned just then, like I've always been quite big on there is no like one size fits all.
Yes.
Right. And even when I talk to clients about some of the non-negotiables that I have, like I'm not saying that you should or that you have to do this or that this is going to be the best thing for you. But I also like to explain like the why behind doing them. It's not like I'm not meditating because I want to be able to tell people I meditate. Like I'm meditating because of this reason, this reason, this reason. Or it might be same with things like ice baths and cold showers. Like I often say to clients, like, I don't do it, like the physical benefit really doesn't mean shit to me. Like I do it because it's going to change my state. And when it changes my state, then I'm so much more likely to then go and do some journaling for 5 minutes and get clear on what I want to experience for the day. And then go and do my meditation and sit in that meditation trying to embody and feel the emotions of the future self or the future outcome, so that by the time I'm finished that meditation, like I am already operating from the vibration of the future self. So I definitely experienced what you're saying to an extent a little bit as well, particularly once I'd really dived into the whole world of self-improvement and personal development. There was periods where I was like, I'm kind of just doing it to tick it off. And so I pulled back on a little bit of it and then really started to lean back into what actually felt good. Because ultimately that's the only reason why you should do any of this shit. And so there'll be periods where I might find with my journaling that I'm just kind of somewhat writing the same things down each day. And it's just become a bit of a habit. So I'll stop journaling for a few weeks or journal when I really feel like I need to. But ultimately, I think the online world it's always going to be that way to an extent, right? It's always going to be a highlight reel. It's always going to be what people want you to see and whatnot. And, you know, what a big focus for myself, and I feel like you're quite similar, is I try not to do that. I try to make it as authentic as possible. When I'm having a shit time, like I'll talk about the fact I'm having a shit time, but I'll also talk about here's what I'm going to lean into to get myself out of it. When things are going great, which is a very interesting one that can be more vulnerable than talking about when things are not going great, but even sharing those experiences and like not making out as if there's one size fits all. It's like, oh, okay, for you to be in the whole spiritual world, like you have to do all these things right here. So you don't have to do any of that stuff. It's really just understanding these different concepts that allow you to ultimately live the best life that you possibly can, you know, and same in the health and fitness space. I think, you know, you said before, like all of these different trends and these different habits and all this shit, it's like majority of people aren't doing all that stuff anyway. It's just what they want you to kind of see. But I think for me, one of the main goals or kind of focuses that like whenever I do meet someone, whenever I sit down for a podcast or if I meet a new client or just meet someone out in public, like I want them to be like, holy shit, you're like exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that is the goal. And that's how it should be in my opinion. But yeah, I think for someone who's watching or listening and like whether it's in the health space or within the personal growth space, there's no right or wrong. There's no like boxes you have to tick to be able to say that you're leaning into personal development or that you are a healthy person. It's like, do what actually works for you. Do the things that you know you're willing to show up for day after day and the things that actually impact you. Even with certain mindset clients now, like we talk about frequency and the what I will get some of them to do is not meditate. It might quite literally be to take your dog down to the beach and go grab a coffee with your partner and go for a walk on the beach, because that puts you in a high frequency. Could be listening to stand-up comedy or anything that allows you to feel really good, because like that's the outcome we're trying to go for here. And I think it's the same as anything. You look at what outcome do I actually want? And the vehicle to get there is going to be different. It's not always just going to be the same thing.
Yeah. I actually really love that's like a penny drop moment for me, where you need to put yourself into a state that is your version of high frequency. That's really helpful, because we were saying at the start and offline about how busy our calendars are. And although I'm very grateful, and I mean, I'm at the peak of my career, so there are naturally going to be things where I stay a bit later, I start a bit earlier, I work on weekends. But actually instilling time to fill up my cup in that high frequency state, that's going to be something that I need to lean in on more, because otherwise I'm taken by everyone else's time. Everyone else wants where I need to be. And I find when I'm drained by the end of the day, that's probably because I haven't done enough to put myself in a high frequency state.
Yeah, and I think as well, like I want to make sure that I'm not coming across in a way that says, you know, you shouldn't hustle, you shouldn't work hard, and you shouldn't push, because as you said, there's going to be seasons, right? There's times where you do need to do that. But even in that scenario, like, again, I feel like you and I are quite similar. Like, I enjoy the work. I enjoy all the things that I'm doing. And so I don't necessarily have a problem with working on a weekend or working after hours or whatever, but I still think there's an importance there of essentially slowing down to go faster.
Agreed.
Is how I look at it.
Agreed.
And so what that might look like is the first hour of the day, instead of, you know, doing all of these different things that need to be done or focusing on my to-do list or whatever, it could literally be like, okay, this is the hour for me. Like I might train, maybe jump in the sauna, maybe I will meditate, maybe I'll just spend time with my partner, whatever it is, because that puts me in a good state. So now the effectiveness of all the other stuff I've got to do is going to be so much better. And so I think it's finding that balance for yourself, and kind of what we said before, not being busy for the sake of being busy. Like I'm more than happy to do the work.
Do you have an assessment tool on that? Like, as in, how do you know if you are being busy for the sake of being busy or if it's productive work? Because I'll be honest, right now I'm the first to kind of go, what's an actual priority? And you kind of mentioned, what's a needle moving forward task? Yeah. Sometimes I get lost in it myself, going, I don't know should I really do that podcast? Should I really go spend half a day at the studio doing that content? Like, it can get a bit noisy.
It can, yeah. So one that I find quite helpful, I ran through this with a client recently. She is in real estate and relatively early-ish in her career. And I essentially said to her, okay, let's imagine you're the number one real estate agent in the country. Like right now, like start to think about the fact that almost like kind of bypassing what reality looks like right now and operating as that future self. You're the number one real estate agent in the country. If you were only allowed to work for 1 hour a day, right? If she was only able to work for 1 hour a day at the moment, no more. Because mind you, she's at work all the time. Right? But I said, if you could only do 1 hour, what would you do in that hour to maximize your outcome at the moment in terms of the success and the growth of yourself and your business and clients and sales and all the rest of it? So she listed off like about 3 or 4 things. I said, all right, how much of that are you doing each day? She's like, oh, like, yeah, doing bits and pieces of it, but there's all this other stuff that needs to be done too. I'm like, yeah, but you've just told me that these are the things that are going to grow your business and your position.
Yeah.
So essentially after that, there was a few things we looked at. I said, first and foremost, when possible, the first hour of your day, every single day, is that and only that, nothing else. Like these are the focus points. And obviously you've got more hours to work in the day, but I want you to approach it as if you've only got that hour to do it. And you're just going to get as much out of that hour as you can. Mm-hmm. So even if you didn't do anything else for the rest of the day, you're probably still going to be moving ahead more than what you are at the moment, because you know that stuff's been done. But what ends up happening is that you finish that hour. Now you are feeling into that high frequency, high vibe state. And so you're going to keep doing more of that stuff. But it'll also make it really, really clear when you're doing shit that really just doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
And so the mentality or the frequency perspective for her was not like, I want you to go and do these things so you can get that outcome. I want you to think of it like think of it as that future self of like the reason why I am the number one agent in the country is because every day for an hour, every single morning, I would prioritize these things. And so there's probably a follow-up exercise to that as well, which I find really helpful for business owners, is somewhat of the same framework, but sitting down, put a timer on for 30, maximum 60 minutes. And for the first 1 to 2 minutes of that hour or 30 minutes, just in dot points, list as many actions that you can think of that are just going to move you in the direction of where you want to be. They don't have to be the right actions. You don't have to know what the result's going to be. It doesn't have to be the end goal or anything, but like, what would you do? Again, if you only had this 30 or 60 minutes, what actions could you take today? And then for the remainder of that time, like phone on airplane mode, no distractions.
Yeah.
Your job is not to think. It is just to execute on as many of those things as you possibly can, detaching from the result or the like what happens when you take the action. Just take the actions. That's what creates momentum. That's what creates clarity of where you do need to go and what maybe won't work. But if you're doing that every single day, and let's say you take 10 actions in 30 minutes, you've taken 50 actions in a 5-day work week, probably going to build more momentum and get you further than what you would in every other week when you're sitting there all day just feeling like you're productive because you've been at work or you're at your desk or you're on your computer. Like I had to have that kind of internal conversation with myself a couple of years ago. I'm like, if I was productive, then things would be moving a lot fucking faster than what they were at the time. So I'm like, the reality is like, from the outside in, it might look like, you know, things are going great or that I'm busy and that I'm doing all the hard work. But I'm like, if nothing's really moving, then what the fuck am I doing? Like,
100%.
Why spend all this time doing this shit if it's not working? And I think if I can just quickly follow up on that with one last thing. Another portion of this, and I feel like you'll like this too, is when we look at like what are the reasons why we're doing this, and when I look at like what are the future desires or the desires that I really have for my life to look like in business, in relationships, financially, materialistically, all of this stuff, there's many elements of that future self that are already present in my current reality. Maybe not on the scale of what I want them to be, but they're there. And so if part of these desires is to have whatever financial freedom, time freedom, again, may not be on the scale yet, but it's already there. And so like, I want to block out an hour and a half, 2 hours on a fucking Wednesday to go for lunch with my fiance because that's the type of life that I'm saying I want to live. And the reality is I can live that life right now. Yes. Why would I not do it? Like this whole kind of like,
I'll have it when work, or I'll do it then. Yeah.
Think about the amount of people who have a desire of time and financial freedom, particularly time freedom, right? The choice to do what they want and do all these things that they know they want to do. And they can do them right now, but they will sacrifice the next 10 years to go and work as hard as they can so that in 10 years' time, they can have time and financial fucking freedom. It's like you can do that shit right now.
Yeah.
It's like, and again, I'm not saying, okay, go, you start spending all your money and doing
like,
no work.
Quit my job. I'm out.
I just think on a smaller scale, it's like we are waiting to be and to be the person and to do the things that right now you have the ability to be and do. And when we talk about frequency and vibration, like what better way to operate from the frequency of the future self than to just start being the future self now?
Yeah.
And experiencing these things that you really enjoy, which then, again, makes you prioritize your time. You go, okay, well, if I am going to go out for lunch on a Wednesday and I'm going to do this on this day, whatever, like, let me make sure that I'm maximizing my time with the stuff that needs to get done. Instead of just feeling like getting to the end of the week, and again, it could be a week, could be 5 years, could be 15 years of your life, every single week, just working morning till night and being busy all the time and all the rest of it. Also, then when it's done, you can go and enjoy your life. It's like, well, there were so many opportunities for you to do things throughout that period of time, but you didn't. And a lot of that time was actually just wasted doing shit that wasn't really making any difference anyway.
Yeah. And what you're describing here for me is like, it's being able to find the gratitude in the here and now.
Yeah.
And that's a real eye opener because I also sometimes when we're not as conscious, we're in the middle of the rat race, or our own version of the rat race. That's the thing. Sometimes I get caught up being like, I've built this life and then now I'm tied down to this particular life. But as you've just mentioned it, I actually have so many elements of the things that I've aspired to have. The time freedom, maybe not all of the time freedom. However, there are definitely pockets. This is technically time freedom.
Yeah.
I'm choosing a day to be able to have these really rich conversations and create content. That in itself is a privilege, and sometimes I miss the moment. So this has really been grounding for me to just get back into the present moment and be really grateful for what we have built.
100%. Yep. Yeah. And that, as I said before, that allows you to be in that frequency.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're in that frequency, you attract more of these things.
Yeah.
You experience more of these things. And as you're saying, like we just sometimes have to realize that a lot of these things that we're saying that we wish we had or that we can't wait to have, there's so much evidence that you've got them already. But the only way you're viewing it is like, well, I only actually have it when it looks like this. You might start here and you want to be there, and right now you're here, but you feel like you're still here because it's not there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Far out perspective, man. Every single time we have these deep chats, we go so deep. And like it's why we're connected, right? And it's why I like treasure online friendship, and every time we do get to be in person, like it's always so special.
It is.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. You always drop so much knowledge and so much wisdom. It's why you're a phenomenal coach.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think everyone should be able to follow you, connect with you, and get a taste of your work, because it honestly is phenomenal. So Danny, thank you so much. I've got a couple questions before we wrap up this chat. Is one, I'm really curious to know, this is my own selfish needs, what 2026 looks like for you. Do you have any big things that we can kind of get an insight to, or that I know what's coming, what you're cooking up? And then, we'll start with that one.
Yeah. 2026 is just continuing to scale the coaching business, but in a way that actually gets a bit more of my time back. I've gotten really clear on the type of clientele that I really love working with, and that's been all moving in that direction, which is fantastic. We have started running pretty regular masterminds, which has been so fun. Essentially just kind of handpicking, usually around 10 different business owners or high performers from a vastly different industries a lot of the time, which is quite interesting, just to expose myself and everyone in that room to different levels, and to, ideally help facilitate other people, and just to also continue to build out this network of people that are doing cool shit, and also ideally to help facilitate other people, to help them connect and grow in their life and their business. We're pushing with Unify, with our supplement brand. We've got a pretty clear objective, a couple of clear objectives in terms of some goals we want to get ticked. I'll say one of them on here now. I've probably told it to you before, but we have a really clear intention of getting our single serve protein and hydrate onto airlines all around the world.
Yes.
And so that's a really big priority at the moment, along with like high-end hotels, because obviously we travel quite a bit with the pod and with work, and so do a lot of my clients. And I think there's a big gap in the market for that, and you shouldn't have to put your goals on hold just because you're going away for a couple of nights. And so that's a big one. Getting married, that is number one.
Scrap
Bring that back to number one. Yeah, getting married next year, which I am so incredibly excited for. My beautiful fiancée, Danielle, if she's listening to this, I cannot wait for that. And yeah, I mean, I feel like there's heaps going on. Podcast, I want to keep pushing with that. And yeah, just to continue to just build that life that which I already get to experience right now, but to continue building that life that I just really love and don't feel like I need a break from. And ideally just making sure I can impact as many people as possible, in the best way possible.
Yeah, and your work has service written all over it, and impact is something that I see you do through and through. And as you continue to build in the years, I just know that message is going to amplify. That's what it is now. It's become you're the vessel, you're the messenger.
That's it.
But how wide can we get that message? So
correct.
Yeah, Danny, you've been so authentic all the way through. A question that we leave with all podcast guests is, what does authenticity mean to you here on the Authentic Me podcast?
That is a great question. Authenticity, I'm going to struggle to even put it into words, but if I try and put it into words, it's showing up in a way that doesn't change based off your environment, the people you're around, or it doesn't change based off the environment you're in or the people that you're around. But it's also, it doesn't require any effort. Essentially, it's the effortless way of being, and I've experienced both sides of it. Very early on, was very much so massive people pleaser. Very much did everything for validation and to try and fit in and to be accepted, and it's fucking exhausting. Whereas when I lean into authenticity, you don't have to try. It requires no effort. It just requires you to be you. And I know that's a pretty shitty explanation, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, it's perfect. It honestly is perfect, because that is what attracts people to fall in love with you, become a super fan, and then people that naturally go, oh, that's not my person. But when you're true to you, there is no show.
Yeah.
You just get to be.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're authentic, there are going to be people that say that's just not for me. And that's also completely fine.
Yeah.
Everyone shouldn't be for you.
Love it. Danny, thank you so much. Where can people find you as we wrap up this show?
Well, firstly, thanks so much for having me, Mel. As you said before, very much so appreciate our friendship, and I love getting to catch up, and I always take so much value and inspiration from you as well. People can find the Fitness and Lifestyle podcasts. There's plenty of episodes to catch up on if you haven't listened before. And then probably just my Instagram at DJK Fitness, and you'll find everything else there.
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you.